Thank you. Okay, see ya. See ya. That getting up and down to pause this video in between takes is gonna take a little bit out of me, but y'all bear with me and I'm here for y'all. So if this is your first video that you're catching wind of, I suggest you go back to the last video to kind of like catch up on what we will be talking about in this video. In part one, I kind of like laid the back history, my family history, my spiritual background in history, the things that kind of led up to, I stopped pretty much at the incident. And what I refer to the incident is the day that I first had sexual intercourse with my abuser. And I break it down like that because of the fact that although the grooming process is not simply just sexual, I think the sexual aspect of my grooming process was the cherry on top, but the relationship and the courting had started pretty much before that, and I'm gonna pretty much get caught up or catch up or pick up, excuse me, where that left off. So okay, after like I said, so I went on the trip, came back from the trip. That vow that we took, we took a vow. I say we took a vow. So okay, so I feel like the reason why I keep mincing my words at this part is because of the fact that I need to scale back and kind of like do a little bit of picking apart the way that I view virginity. I understand that virginity is a construct that kind of like that separates the value of women and men, girls and boys. It creates this pristine image of young girls. It creates this image of girls, women, young women, period, that they are not sexual beings, and that to save yourself for marriage would mean that you are worth marriage, or your worth is tied to another person or that value. And although I don't necessarily agree with that system, I do not believe that my value is tied to anything. I don't think that my value is necessarily tied to the things that I've experienced. My value is closely knit to what I've learned and what I've applied from these experiences. So I believe, although I do not necessarily believe in the virginity concept, I do not believe that children can consent to having sex. So that leads me to say that although we know young teenagers and young children are having premarital sex, are having casual sex, I don't necessarily agree that that is the appropriate thing that children should be doing. So I feel like that's maybe easy for me to say in hindsight because of all the shit that I deal with. But that's not to take away from this story, if that makes sense. So I mentioned this thing about virginity because of the fact that the 2-year vow that we took, and the ring that we took, of course, was a setup to begin with. Granted, it's something that actually, something I want to mention that kind of came up. I think I mentioned it, or we can kind of infer, like, it was not just an all-girls program, and it was not just an all-girls trip. However, I believe that when we took the classes, that there were classes that we took together, you know, mixing sexes, and then there were separate gender classes. And the separate gender classes spoke more about, you know, women's hygiene, virginity, just being very mindful of the shell of the vessel that God gave you and how that should be carried in the street. That, I know. I feel like a lot of people have a lot of things, or there's a lot of negative things to say, right, about just the projection onto children, especially young children, impressionable children, on what they should or should not do, who they should or should not be. But I do want to say that as far as the African American family and heritage goes, we, at our truest sense, at our traditional sense, we are a very strict, religious, and fortified group of people. Like, our fortitude is all-time high. Our creativity is in an all-time high. The way we care for our children, we mirror the same energy. So the things that I was taught as a young girl, I feel like if people got on the internet today and they said them, they would be extremely problematic. However, I will say that I do not believe that everything that I learned in this class, of course, led me astray. So, and I will start by saying that after I came back from the trip, I felt different. And I think that there's an air about a young woman who has experienced something that she can't take back, that she walks with. I know some of you watching this probably have young teenage girls, and you know when they have started or enter puberty and they're like really moody and they're really like, you know, like, just, I don't know, they don't want to be bothered, they're very temperamental, like to be isolated, like to do things that they like to do, and that's just about it, right? All of these things are part of the normal process of growing from a young woman into a young adult. However, when I came back from the trip, that energy was like at a times 10. And I understand that from my parents at the time, they didn't know what happened, but they also didn't ask any questions. And not asking questions, I think that was part of how this relationship kind of carried on for 5 years, because of the fact that after I came back, so much had changed. I felt like I was not noticeably different, but I felt different. Like, I felt more mature, I felt older. And in that, there was a lot of resistance that I felt, like 12-year-old, 13-year-old me felt. But after that transpired, I felt like I could brave anything. And that feeling caused me a lot of grief. That feeling of feeling like I could brave anything caused me a lot of grief. I was feeling myself. I mean, what we associated now, we can tell when a woman has just had, you know, she's feeling herself. My first experience was not a good experience. There are a lot of details surrounding that actual first time that I have written about, I've tried to remember, and I've tried to recall for this video's sake, but I also kind of feel like it isn't necessarily necessary to relive some of the traumatic things. It wasn't physically traumatic. I wouldn't say that. It wasn't like a physical attack, thankfully. And if that was your experience, I'm really sorry. I can't even, I'm really sorry that happened to you. But the way that my body felt, the relationship that I had with sex thereafter has never been a healthy one. Sex for me caused a lot of pain, a lot of discomfort, to the point that as I grew into my womanhood, into my feminine nature, into my sensuality, I did not feel like sex was necessary for that. A big part of me, and a big part of my grooming process, was, you're amazing, you know, the talk was like, you're amazing, you're a trophy, you're perfect as you are and only for me. So what does that do to a young girl who has a life full of experiences happening to her at the palm of her hands, right? So when I was 14, I had signed up for the local marching band. I'm from Yonkers, New York. It's probably going to come out in this channel at some point. So in Yonkers, New York, there was a marching band. This was like 2004 at the Neperhan Community Center. So ran by Jim Bostic. At this point, I'm just going to say names because it helps with the storyline and like personally how I felt that the adults involved in this particular situation or scenario, they did not do what was necessary to protect the children, because of the fact that my groomer was not the first person accused of just being too friendly with young girls. And this was before I came around, mind you. I didn't know. So evidently everybody in this church is on guard with these older men, meaning the elders are kind of very like, but no one's saying anything. No one's removing them from the church, and no one's protecting the children. If anything, they are singling out the type of children that are not welcomed in this church by who gathers with who. And I thought that was very interesting. I thought it was very interesting how cliquish these safe communities are, when God is like, I sent you in this world by yourself, you will leave by yourself. Like, so this clique like energy thing is toxic. Needless to say. But so yeah, we came back from it. I keep on jumping around because that's exactly what I feel like trauma also does to you. One of the reasons why, I'm gonna scale back a little bit, one of the reasons why I'm talking about this, because as a 31-year-old woman who has been in a relationship with a wonderful man for the past almost 4 years, I have finally, thankfully, prayerfully, had the opportunity to slow down my life, my thought process, my whys, and really just peel back the layers. And y'all know I be writing, and for a very long time I felt like the trauma that was in my mind was being romanticized in my writing, not because of the fact that I think trauma is beautiful. It's because it's the only thing that I know. Awesome, thank you. May I have a hug? Thank you. Okay, see ya. And not because I think that trauma is beautiful, like I said, because it's been the only thing that I know. So when we refer to artists painting self-portraits, if the only thing that I've known is people isolating and taking advantage of my isolation, that has been what has been mirrored in my work. And I just decided that I'm tired. I'm tired of mirroring a part of myself that isn't necessarily the most authentic. So again, this YouTube channel is my attempt at like prioritizing my healing and doing it my way, and not being so worried about who sees it and who will be offended by what they hear, because it really happened, you know. So I joined the marching band. I worked so hard, girl. I'm 14 years old. I had been in the band maybe like no more than 9 months. I had crushed it. There was a drum majorette position open. I what's that called? Auditioned. I got it. So here we are. Like, we have a new marching band. I'm a new majorette. I'm killing it. This is my when it comes to performance, when it comes to art, when it comes to expressing yourself, your girl, that's what I was here to do. So I was taken aback by this new opportunity, this new sense of responsibility, and I was really like just enamored with this idea that I could be like that I could be everything that at the time people were telling me that I was qualified to be, but I couldn't really see it in myself. So Well, when you're becoming a drum majorette, right, in a town where at the time the marching band thing was pretty popular, I was gaining popularity without me really noticing. I didn't really understand. I kept so small into myself because of the inappropriate relationship that I was having. I didn't really know or believe that people knew my name. Or I didn't really know that or believe that people knew who I was, like, or cared, honestly. I wasn't a cool kid. I felt like I blended in. It wasn't super cool. I also wasn't like completely exiled, like, but most of my weekends were spent in an extracurricular activity, not with friends. So that's all I'll say. So, as I mentioned before, this was during a time where you could sign up for, I was in Girl Scouts, Drum Majorette, peer groups, peer leader this, conflict resolution that, dare, this, that. Everything that I could get signed up for that gave me a trophy or a flipping award at the end. Yeah, that was me. I was there. So, yeah. So doing so with the band, I gained a sense of popularity that I wasn't necessarily prepared for. And I found out, not in the moment, but at the time, that the people who were running or choreographing the dances and stuff, teaching us to the band, holding us for conditions and this, that, and the third, they were also related to my music. There were young girls a part of the program that I was a part of that I knew, but we weren't super cool. They were a bit younger than me, but I also felt like extremely exiled. I felt extremely talked about. And that's one thing that intuition will do to you. But paranoia is another thing that I felt like really started young for me, that was projected onto me. So naturally, if you're dealing with a grown man and a grown man doesn't want to get in trouble for dealing with you, he's going to have you looking over your shoulder. He's going to suggest that the people in your life are not people for you. He's going to suggest that the people that do care about you in your life are leading you astray, and that they have no place for where you're trying to go. So here we are, 14, young, impressionable, finally doing something in dance, something that I've always wanted to do all my life. And I'm now being told that in order to do it, I have to completely isolate myself and not be a team player. The drum majorette is a team player, y'all. I'm not sure if you guys know about marching band stuff, but they get the crowd going. That is literally the point. Something that I thought was very interesting about my charisma or my charm as a child was, everywhere I went, someone pointed out like how bright I was. This is not to get it confused with the fact that I'm also the lightest person in my family. That's a whole nother thing. But energy wise, smile, temperament, very obedient, very submissive. And one day we're gonna, maybe at the end of this video, another conversation or something, but we're gonna break down my thoughts on submission and why I still identify as a submissive woman, although I have not been able to fall into my submission at all. So longest story short, I ended up not necessarily doing too well in performing too well in this position, and the social part of it was the difficulty for me because of the fact that I really felt like on the other side of this, my forever really rested in how open I was in this experience. So here we are from the ages of 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. I was holding myself back out of the attempt to see if all the things that were being told to me about myself, about my future, were honest and true. I had sacrificed in my belief. I believed that love was about sacrifice. We're talking about a 13, 14-year-old mind here, right? So I believe that I had sacrificed a major part of myself that no one else would be able to claim that they had or experienced for longevity, for friendship forever, for these very real, lovely, like, let's not get it confused. These were very lovely things that I was desiring or wanting, but from the sources that were not there, who were unable to provide it without a negative romantic context attached, which was inappropriate for a child. Before your frontal lobe is developed, making decisions and making decisions soundly, I know damn well there's outfits that you put on at 15, 16 years old that you wouldn't wear right now. You just wouldn't do it. Not because of the fact that it wouldn't look good on you. It just doesn't look good, period. So when it came to my psychosis on thinking about what it was that I wanted for the future, I knew that I wanted someone around forever, point blank, period. Not because that I did something, not whatever, and I felt like at the time I had nothing going for myself. I was 13. Like, I'm nothing. No one knows my name, this, that, and the third, and this person saw me, so this person deserves me. And that, my friend, this is why I feel like it's important for parents to talk to their children about value, about the things that your children can do without any effort that increase their value. And in increasing their value, it does not depreciate anyone else's, you know. So we're not trying to raise a generation of like conceited children or children who are completely arrogant, who think that they are worth more than other children. What I'm trying to exclaim is allowing a child to see the valuable connections in themselves allows them to see that value in other people and then treat them valuable. I believe had my abuser been seen as valuable in his child years, had been not taking advantage of in his child years, there would have been no space for me. There would have been no space for me because it just wouldn't have happened. And I know that to be true because of the fact that, like I said, for the past 4 years, I've been in a relationship with someone who loves me in a way that reminds me of a time in my life that I had so long tried to forget. And for a long part of me, I was resisting that type of love because I felt like it was wrong. Once I acknowledged that the relationship that I had been a part of for XYZ was not the relationship that I should have been a part in or should have been engaged in, or that I was not mature enough to handle. I don't think anyone's really honestly mature enough to handle being taken advantage of, their body being used, introduced to things and substances that they shouldn't be, talked to any kind of way, physically abused, let alone doing so at 13, 14, 15 years old. I don't think that anyone's ever really mature for that. And I think it's very interesting, the conversation that we put on young women, saying the reasons why we don't encourage them to do certain things is because they're not mature enough. I don't think anyone is really necessarily mature enough to experience that. But I can say, and this is going to segue into another part of the conversation that I do want to have, maybe not in this video, maybe another one, because I was asking in the comments, my homegirl, I don't know how to, y'all gonna have to teach me, be patient with me, and also relax. I don't know how to do all that insert stuff in here, but there was a young woman who watched the last video and her comments were extremely engaging. And she asked me a question. One of the questions that she asked was, what did it say? She was asking me to talk about the freedom, or how did I learn to become very free in my body after being taken advantage of in such a way. Oh no, my camera wants to die. Okay, so looks like part 3 is gonna come, so I will compile this together and also upload it so we can get that uploaded. But yeah, for the most part, I want to hear your questions. I feel like I'll start the next video with that question because I feel like I may get that one a lot. And I've gotten it a lot over the years, and I didn't have the words for it, but now I think I have the words. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. I know this and it's like wrapping up right now. I'm like cutting it off because my battery's dying. But thank you so much for watching. If you have comments that you would like for me to expound on, I think this conversation should be organic and not necessarily forced, in the hopes that it actually percolates like real conversation that will generate or kickstart real healing, you know? I'm tired of just talking about the shit and not really being about it. So yeah, I will see you later. I will see you later. And I don't know, this setup in my kitchen seems like it's best. So get used to it, guys. You're going to see it again.